Establishment of the KGB, 1954. The Committee for State Security, known by its Russian acronym KGB, Komitet Gosudarstvennoy Bezopasnosti, was officially established on March 13, 1954. The creation of the KGB was a pivotal moment in the history of Soviet state security, aimed at consolidating the functions of various security services under one centralized body. This reorganization followed the death of Joseph Stalin in 1953 and the subsequent political shifts under Nikita Khrushchev. The KGB inherited responsibilities from its predecessors, including the NKVD, People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs, and the MGB, Ministry of State Security. Its mandate encompassed foreign intelligence, counterintelligence, internal security, border security, and surveillance of the population to root out anti-Soviet activities. First Chairman, Ivan Serov, 1954–1958. Ivan Serov, a veteran of Soviet security services, was appointed as the first chairman of the KGB. Under Serov's leadership, the KGB underwent significant restructuring to streamline operations and enhance efficiency. One of his primary tasks was to restore order within the security apparatus, which had been fragmented during the tumultuous period following Stalin's death. Serov focused on centralizing control and expanding the agency's capabilities. He played a crucial role in integrating the KGB into the broader Soviet power structure, ensuring it served the interests of the Communist Party. His tenure also saw the implementation of rigorous internal discipline within the KGB, which helped to establish its feared reputation. Hungarian Uprising, 1956. The KGB's role in the Hungarian Uprising of 1956 highlighted its function in maintaining Soviet dominance over Eastern Europe. The uprising was a nationwide revolt against the Soviet-imposed policies and the presence of Soviet troops in Hungary. The KGB, along with Soviet military forces, played a critical role in suppressing the rebellion. It provided intelligence on the activities of Hungarian insurgents and coordinated with the Soviet army to crush the uprising. The brutal crackdown, which included mass arrests, executions, and deportations, demonstrated the KGB's capacity for repression and its importance in sustaining Soviet influence in the Eastern Bloc. Monitoring of intellectuals and dissidents, late 1950s. During the late 1950s, the KGB intensified its surveillance and repression of intellectuals, writers, and political dissidents who were seen as threats to Soviet ideology. Prominent figures such as Boris Pasternak, the Nobel Prize-winning author of Dr. Zhivago, faced intense scrutiny and harassment. The KGB's efforts to control cultural and intellectual life in the Soviet Union were part of a broader campaign to enforce ideological conformity and prevent the spread of dissenting ideas. This period saw the development of sophisticated surveillance techniques and a network of informants that allowed the KGB to monitor and intimidate potential subversives effectively. Leadership of Yuri Andropov, 1967–1982. Yuri Andropov's tenure as chairman of the KGB marked a period of significant expansion and modernization. Appointed in 1967, Andropov served until 1982, making him one of the longest-serving and most influential leaders of the KGB. He introduced technological advancements and streamlined the agency's operations. Andropov emphasized the importance of intelligence gathering and counterintelligence, making the KGB a formidable force both domestically and internationally. Under his leadership, the KGB expanded its influence within the Soviet government, becoming a central player in policymaking and state security. Prague Spring and Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia, 1968. The KGB was heavily involved in the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968, which was launched to suppress the Prague Spring, a period of political liberalization and reform in Czechoslovakia. The KGB conducted extensive surveillance and intelligence operations to monitor the reformist movement and support pro-Soviet elements within the Czechoslovak government. The invasion was a coordinated effort between the KGB and the Soviet military to reinstall a hardline communist regime and prevent the spread of liberalizing influences in the Eastern Bloc. The KGB's role in this operation demonstrated its capacity to conduct large-scale international operations and its importance in maintaining the Soviet sphere of influence. Operation Trust, 1970s. Throughout the 1970s, the KGB conducted Operation Trust, a sophisticated counterintelligence operation designed to infiltrate and discredit anti-Soviet resistance groups. The operation involved creating a fake anti-Soviet underground organization to lure dissidents and foreign intelligence operatives into revealing themselves. This operation allowed the KGB to gather intelligence on opposition activities and neutralize threats to the Soviet regime. Operation Trust highlighted the KGB's skill in deception and psychological operations, showcasing its ability to manipulate and control perceived enemies. KGB's role in the Soviet-Afghan War, 1979 to 1989. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 saw significant involvement from the KGB, which played a crucial role in intelligence and counterinsurgency efforts. The agency provided vital intelligence to the Soviet military, conducted covert operations against the Mujahideen, and engaged in propaganda campaigns to support the Soviet presence in Afghanistan. The war became a protracted conflict that strained Soviet resources and ultimately contributed to the decline of the Soviet Union. The KGB's activities in Afghanistan illustrated its capacity for extensive foreign operations and its central role in Soviet military and political strategies. The 1983 Korean Airlines Flight 007 incident. In 1983, the KGB was involved in the controversial downing of Korean Airlines Flight 007, which had strayed into Soviet airspace. The incident resulted in the death of all 269 passengers and crew members aboard. The KGB provided intelligence and coordination for the Soviet military response, which included the shooting down of the civilian airliner. The incident led to international condemnation and heightened Cold War tensions, underscoring the KGB's aggressive stance on defending Soviet airspace and sovereignty. Repression of dissidents. Throughout the 1980s, the KGB continued its campaign against political dissidents and intellectuals. High-profile figures such as physicist and human rights activist Andrei Sakharov and writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn faced severe repression. The KGB employed tactics such as surveillance, harassment, imprisonment, and exile to silence dissent. This period highlighted the agency's role in maintaining ideological control and suppressing any challenges to the Soviet regime. The repression of dissidents was a key aspect of the KGB's domestic operations, ensuring that opposition to the Communist Party was effectively neutralized. August Coup, 1991. The KGB played a controversial role in the August Coup of 1991, an attempted overthrow of Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev by hardline members of the Communist Party and the KGB. The coup was motivated by opposition to Gorbachev's reforms and the perceived weakening of the Soviet state. Elements within the KGB supported the coup plotters, providing logistical and intelligence support. However, the coup failed due to widespread public resistance and the loyalty of key military units to Gorbachev. The failure of the coup accelerated the dissolution of the Soviet Union and led to the disintegration of the KGB. This event marked the end of an era for Soviet state security and the beginning of a new chapter in Russian history. Dissolution and successor agencies. 1991. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the KGB was officially dissolved in December 1991. Its functions were divided among several newly formed agencies. The Federal Security Service, FSB, was created to handle domestic security and counterintelligence, while the Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, took over foreign intelligence operations. The Main Intelligence Directorate, GRU, continued its role in military intelligence. These successor agencies inherited the legacy and many of the personnel of the KGB, ensuring continuity in Russian intelligence and security operations. The reorganization aimed to adapt the functions of the KGB to the new political and economic realities of post-Soviet Russia. The rise of Vladimir Putin, 1999 to 2000. Vladimir Putin, a former KGB officer, rose to prominence in the late 1990s, becoming Prime Minister in 1999 and President of Russia in 2000. Putin's background in the KGB significantly influenced his approach to governance, emphasizing strong central control, state security, and intelligence. His ascent marked the return of former KGB operatives to positions of power within the Russian government. Under Putin, the influence of the FSB and other security services was significantly strengthened, and their role in political and economic affairs expanded. Putin's leadership style and policies reflected the enduring legacy of the KGB's methods and priorities. Consolidation of the FSB, 2000s. During the 2000s, the Federal Security Service, FSB, was consolidated and expanded under Putin's leadership. The FSB regained significant influence, playing a central role in domestic security, counterterrorism, and counterintelligence operations. The agency was granted extensive powers, including surveillance, detention, and prosecution of suspected terrorists and criminals. The FSB's enhanced capabilities allowed it to act as a powerful tool of state control, ensuring the stability and security of the Russian government. The agency's prominence in Russian politics and society reflected the continued importance of state security in the post-Soviet era. Chechen Wars, 1994 to 1996, 1999 to 2009. The FSB and other successor agencies were deeply involved in the Chechen Wars, which were conflicts between Russian forces and Chechen separatists. The First Chechen War, 1994 to 1996, ended in a stalemate, but the Second Chechen War, 1999 to 2009, saw a decisive Russian victory. The FSB conducted extensive counterinsurgency and counterterrorism operations, including intelligence gathering, infiltration of insurgent groups, and targeted assassinations. The brutal tactics used by the FSB, including widespread human rights abuses, highlighted the agency's role in maintaining Russian territorial integrity and combating separatism. The conflict underscored the continued relevance of the security services in Russia's internal affairs. Alexander Litvinenko assassination, 2006. The assassination of former FSB officer Alexander Litvinenko in London in 2006 brought international attention to the activities of Russian intelligence services. Litvinenko, who had defected to the UK and become a vocal critic of the Russian government, was poisoned with radioactive polonium-210. The attack was widely attributed to the FSB, sparking a major diplomatic crisis between Russia and the UK. The assassination demonstrated the FSB's willingness to target perceived enemies abroad and highlighted the ongoing use of covert operations reminiscent of KGB tactics. The incident underscored the lengths to which Russian intelligence would go to silence dissent and protect state interests. Cyber operations and election interference, 2010s. In the 2010s, Russian intelligence agencies, including the FSB, were implicated in a series of high-profile cyber operations and election interference campaigns. These activities included hacking, disinformation, and propaganda efforts aimed at influencing political outcomes in various countries. Notably, the 2016 US presidential election saw allegations of Russian meddling, with intelligence agencies concluding that Russia had conducted cyber attacks and information warfare to influence the election in favor of Donald Trump. These operations demonstrated the evolving nature of intelligence activities in the digital age and the strategic use of cyber capabilities to achieve geopolitical objectives. Annexation of Crimea, 2014. The FSB played a significant role in the annexation of Crimea in 2014, a move that marked a major geopolitical shift and a reassertion of Russian power. The FSB conducted covert operations and intelligence activities to support the swift and largely unopposed takeover of Crimea from Ukraine. The annexation involved the use of little green men, unmarked Russian soldiers, and local pro-Russian militias, coordinated by Russian intelligence. The operation was executed with high precision and secrecy, reflecting the capabilities of the FSB and its importance in Russian strategic planning. The annexation led to widespread international condemnation and sanctions against Russia. Skripal poisoning, 2018. The poisoning of former Russian double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in Salisbury, UK, in 2018 was attributed to agents of the GRU, another successor agency of the KGB. The attack involved the use of a military-grade nerve agent known as Novichok. The incident led to a significant diplomatic fallout, with the expulsion of numerous Russian diplomats from Western countries. The Skripal poisoning highlighted the ongoing activities of Russian intelligence services in foreign territories and their willingness to use lethal measures against perceived traitors. The event underscored the continuity of aggressive tactics within Russian intelligence operations. Navalny poisoning and arrest, 2020. Opposition leader Alexei Navalny was poisoned with a nerve agent in 2020, an act widely attributed to the FSB. Navalny, a prominent critic of Vladimir Putin, fell critically ill during a flight in Russia and was subsequently evacuated to Germany for treatment. The poisoning led to international condemnation and calls for accountability. Following his recovery, Navalny returned to Russia, where he was immediately arrested and imprisoned. His arrest sparked widespread protests and highlighted the FSB's role in political repression. The incident demonstrated the lengths to which the Russian state and its security apparatus would go to eliminate opposition and maintain control. Ongoing influence and legacy. 2023 present. The legacy of the KGB continues to shape Russian politics and society. The FSB and other successor agencies remain powerful entities within Russia, involved in various aspects of state security, intelligence, and foreign operations. The enduring influence of these agencies reflects the historical continuity of the KGB's mission and methods. Under Putin's leadership, the security services have played a central role in consolidating state power, controlling opposition, and asserting Russia's position on the global stage. The legacy of the KGB is evident in the structures, strategies, and personnel of its successor agencies, which continue to operate with a mandate of protecting and advancing the interests of the Russian state. Conclusion. The history of the KGB is a testament to the power and reach of state security and intelligence agencies in shaping national and international events. From its formation in the early years of the Cold War to its dissolution and the rise of its successor agencies, the KGB has left an indelible mark on Russian and global history. Its methods, missions, and operations have evolved over the decades, but the core principles of state security and intelligence remain central to the functioning of its successors. The KGB's legacy is one of both fear and respect, reflecting its role as a formidable instrument of Soviet and Russian power.